I know sometimes you say, but you don't understand, Jack, and life is unfair, and it wasn't really my fault. Good morning to everybody. Welcome to Timeout, Jack Windt. It's a glorious morning in Gauteng, and I thought I'll just show you a little bit of the water behind me, the lake. It's still as flat as a pancake. There are fish jumping. I don't know if they're jumping now, and there's ducks. And it's just a brilliant morning, winter morning almost virtually in Gauteng. The sun is out. I hope you find yourself, you're safe, and that you take a bit of time out and you're doing well. And as I do time out this morning, I had a call this week on Saturday from a friend that I haven't heard from for a long time. His name is Vincent. And he just said he phoned to tell me he was watching Time Out and that it really was such a blessing and encouragement to him. And he just wanted to thank me. And I thought, well, thank you, Vince. That was great. And I was thinking maybe, you can't always phone me, but you can comment and I read it. And that's great. And even if you disagree with me, I still enjoy the comments. So please feel free to comment and so that we can just share this together. Now I'm just going to sit down here outside the sun. And so just bear with me this morning as I clip it in here. Yeah, there we go. The sun is out in its glory. But we're having some time out. Now, I want to share with you this morning about living a life with no excuses and no regrets. And before I get to that, I was thinking about a story I read this week in the Bible about a man called John the Baptist. An interesting man. He was making waves and to such an extent that the religious hierarchy in Jerusalem sent a delegation to him to say, they like to control everything and they like to know who's everybody and where's everybody. And they'd never heard about this guy, and he was making waves. So they sent this delegation to say, go find out about this guy. And the delegation got to John the Baptist, but he didn't like to talk about himself. And so he was just saying, no, he's not that and he's not that. And eventually they got frustrated and they said to him, we need to report back to the people who sent us. Tell us something. And then, they asked him an interesting question. In John 1, I think it is chapter 1, verse 22. They asked this question. Now, I want to pose this question to you this morning as listeners. They asked him, after all the things they wanted to hear, they said, okay, tell us, what do you say about yourself? And I thought, that's a great question. So here's my question. What do you say this morning about yourself? If somebody had to come and ask you, you're waking waves, and they want to know where you are and where you're from, what would you say about yourself? And he gave a very interesting answer. He quoted one of the prophets, Isaiah, and he said, I am a voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the paths of the Lord. And I thought, gee, we are a voice. You are a voice. So when somebody says, what do you say about yourself? You say, I'm a voice of something. And that brought me to what I want to say this morning. What are you saying? What am I saying? And so this morning I want to say, let us live our lives with no excuses and no regrets. And so I want to start with excuses. We all make excuses for various reasons. But my mentor once told me, my spiritual mentor said, Jack, if you've got a good excuse, don't use it. Because the moment you use it, it's no longer a good excuse. So, excuses, it's almost like they postpone the inevitable. It's like we don't want to take responsibility, so we make excuses and we delay things. And it wastes time. And so I want to encourage you, don't make excuses. I know sometimes you say, but you don't understand, Jack, and life is unfair and it wasn't really my fault. Listen, just live by this. Say, I make no excuses. Because that means you take ownership. And, it costs, when you say I can't do something, it costs 6 or 5 or 6 reasons to substantiate that of excuses. You have to say it's because of this and that. Because I can't do something always takes an explanation. But when you say I can do something, you don't need any excuses. Just say I can, and immediately you can do it. So let's not live our lives with excuses. And the second one is, don't live your life with regrets. Now, I'm not saying Don't be sorry for something maybe that you did wrong. I'm not saying that we shouldn't regret anything or reflect on anything. I'm simply saying don't live in regrets. Because you see, there is no redemption when I live in regrets, because it's like I can never get it right because I can never fix it. And so if I live in regrets, I'm living a lifestyle that can never go anywhere. You know, we started a podcast, and I'm part of a podcast. As a matter of fact, my son Newton started it, Living Word Radio. It's great. We had our first session this last week called culture cancelling, and you can go and listen to it, and it was brilliant, and our slogan was off the record, and we had some records there, and it reminded me that I used to play records similar to those when I grew up, because we had records, and they would say, when the record was scratched, it got stuck, and so it didn't carry, it just went in the same groove. And that's where the saying goes, don't be like a stuck record when you play the same thing over and over. And that's what a regret does. It makes me play the record over and over, my mistake or my regret over and over. And that's where I live. I'm not going any further in the song or in the life. I'm just stuck there. So, sometimes we just have to be careful that we don't live in regrets. We have to be careful that we don't always, that we don't always say to ourselves, I can't, and I can't get out of this. And the reason may be, if I think about it, I have to be honest, the reason is why we can't get out of regrets is because we struggle with forgiveness. The Bible says when you pray, forgive. It's always a good thing. To forgive other people if they've done to you something or you've done to them, because the Bible teaches, do unto others as you want them to do to you. And it says when you pray, forgive, because otherwise your prayers won't be answered. So it's always good to forgive other people. But when we stand and pray, we need to remember the first person we need to forgive is us. You need to forgive yourself first, because if you can't forgive yourself, and you have a regret, a continued regret you're living in, you will not be able to forgive other people, and you will live in that regret, and that regret will take you down. It will take me down. So it's a lack of forgiveness sometimes why we can't get past regrets and why we live in regrets. So the first person we need to forgive is ourselves, and then we need to forgive other people, because you can't live a life of regrets. There was somebody who once said that in life we all have choices to make, but we must remember, or you must remember, in the choices you make, they make you. And I thought that's a good saying, and this morning I want to encourage you. What is your voice? As that voice that John the Baptist had, what is your voice and what are you saying? And I'd like you to think that you're saying, Jack, I'm going to live my life with no excuses and no regrets. My name is Jack Windt. You've been watching Timeout. I'll catch you next week.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me